Yo, what's going on, miners? Today we're going to be talking about Flux. So let's just get right into this. Flux. Everybody loves it. Everyone's been, getting into it and stuff like that. But there is some things that I think people that need to be brought to everybody's attention, right? Um, so let's talk about the first thing, the Flux nodes, right? Um, just a little update. I had to reschedule my interview with the developer, so it'll be going on this coming weekend, and hopefully I will release it next Monday. So 1 week from today should be the release of the interview I have with their developer. So little update on that. All right, now that that's out of the way, Flux nodes. Let's go back to this video I did about 8 months ago when I showed everybody Secatiel's DApp, right? And if we I want to pay close attention to this. 8 months ago, this is like when it was at its peak, pretty much. Is there was 15,458 nodes total, right? So if we come over here to the current node count, we're at 12,135. And then some of you might be like, well, they probably just converted to Nimbus or Stratus nodes, right? But if you look at these numbers right here, right, we'll go to the Stratus 1819. Come back to my video, it's 1880. So those are down as well. And then you come back to the Nimbus, which is 1969, and they were at 2281. So about 300 less Nimbus nodes and 60 less Stratus nodes. And, a couple thousand Cumulus nodes have dropped off the network. What's happening here? Are people just tired of these things constantly going down, having to troubleshoot them to get them back up? I could understand that frustration, right? Because I know several people who run lots of Cumulus nodes that do have issues of when their nodes do go down, and then they have to troubleshoot the node, get it back up. But the bad part is once the node goes down and it's down for too long or inside a maintenance window, then you get in trouble, right? Then you have to go back to the end of the line, which is, unpleasant. So what's been going on? Like, why, if we come over here, there, you can see here after the Flux halving, which was at the start of this year, right? So not as far back as my 8th month, but this is what it's down currently right now from the halving. They're down 2,382 nodes. Negative 400 Nimbus, negative 272 on the Stratus. The coin has dropped down 58 cents. They've lost 5.3 megasouls off their network for hash rate. And obviously the Flux supply, the locked amount has changed, right? Because these nodes are no longer locked. So there's a difference of about, about 18 million of Flux not being locked up. Little concerning there. And then you could also come over here to their utilization of the actual resources. Only 2% of the SSD is being utilized, 4.58% of the RAM, and 11.83% of the CPU usage is actually being utilized. So people aren't using the Flux nodes, which is not good, right? Because we want the Flux nodes to get utilized, and we want the network to be used. So which brings me to the next subject, which is going to be their port range that they have recently decided to add to acquire enterprise level of customers. And I still have to do my interview with them to get a full understanding about it. But my first initial impression of this, right? And I could be mistaken, like I said, but my first initial impression is you're driving more people away from doing this. So this way, only maybe people with network administrative skills or people who know networking, right, who have like Ubiquity and other high-end routers at their house who understand how to protect their network are going to be the ones to do this. And I do understand that you do want people with experience running these particular platforms, right? Because you just don't want anybody willy-nilly running your network. I kind of understand that a little bit, but you also have to realize that there's limitations of what people can do at home, though. And I feel like it's good if nodes keep going down, and all you're gonna have is all these people who host nodes like at Goldie's and like Hetzner or like AWS or any of these other hosting places. And I guess people won't host it from home, right? Because they just don't, maybe they don't have the necessary equipment. Maybe they don't want to take that risk, right? Um, Everybody's level of understanding of networking and stuff like that is going to different, right? And everybody's going to have different networking gear. I think if these guys are shooting for the moon to acquire like places like AWS or like, you're trying to compete with them, is you need to create some kind of network standard. Right now, there is no standards whatsoever across this network. It's just like, hey, if you come on, enable UPnP and we'll do the rest. Like there's so many different levels of network, like security, like that people have. You know what I mean? People who probably have Ubiquity are more secure than the guy who just has an all-in-one Comcast router. You know what I mean? I feel like they're pushing away by making this more complex. Is they're pushing away the average user, right? Which I do understand that this is not always for the average user, but then you're going to lose those people that are at home, right? Which I think is a big deal because it's going to give that feeling of decentralization. Now, if they technically just everybody hosted at AWS and Hetzner and all these other hosting places, right? Technically, that's decentralized, but if you're going to compete with AWS, why are they going to put it on nodes that run on AWS or other, big time, companies? Why wouldn't they just go to them directly? You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. They could just go to AWS directly and get the service. So that's about nodes, right? Nodes, the user is down right now for the amount of nodes. Everything's down across the board right now as far as the node infrastructure. So let's talk about the other subject I wanted to talk about, which is going to be their WordPress page or their WordPress solution that they have. Now, if you come down here to the runonflux.io, it is under the Flux Cloud products, right? So then you click on this and you go to the WordPress part, and it tells you all about it. And I'm going to tell you this about my WordPress, and this is just an honest review from me, and maybe every other buddy's experience is going to be good or bad. Now, when you actually eventually get to WordPress, it will eventually say that this is a beta, but it doesn't say that until that point. I have spooled up approximately 5 different instances. This one here is it's a year long. I have hard redeployed and soft redeployed this and reset this particular one over a few dozen times. It just gets really borked. So when you come into your node here or your dApps, see, I already have a problem. You should have a master node in here, right? This has already been redeployed again. If you come back to my other dApps here, you go to like the newest one, which is the newest instance I just bought. There's 4 nodes because there's a master and then these are all slaves. So I think there's a genuine problem with the database and how it works and how all the nodes sync together. I don't know this. I can't confirm that, but that's what I'm guessing what's happening, because if you make edits to your page, you'll get errors where it won't even let you go to that page again or even make edits, right? And then there's times where plugins don't work, like really basic plugins like Elementor, which is, if any of you guys are WordPress people, you know that that's just a basic editing tool and it works everywhere. So that tool usually doesn't work for me 75% of the time. Lots of other plugins don't work. And I know, and look, I understand that this is a beta, but man, there's a long way to go with this WordPress. I have had several instances. I have tried redeployed, soft deploying, hard deploying, and it's been more work for me to get the WordPress site to keep it up. I spent more time resetting and redeploying nodes than working on my actual web page. They have a long way to go with this. Um, I would call this more of an alpha than a beta personally, but that's just me though. Talk with a couple of their devs about some of the issues I've had over here, and they are very helpful, but it's still there's constant problems, right? Like I don't see a big company coming over here and saying like, "Hey man, I want to host my stuff with you," because they're not going to want to deal with these kinds of problems, right? Of like of their nodes constantly going down and moving over, and then there's a blip, and then you have to redeploy it to get their website up, and then if it doesn't redeploy right, you got to do it again, and it's just like they they just want to host somewhere where it's just a VM and it's just going to be up 99% of the time. They don't want these kinds of problems. And I get it, right? Flux has a very competitive price compared to if you look at compared to their competitors, right, at like AWS and stuff like that. But the WordPress has a very long way to go. It's very unstable. I was trying to actually run my Mining King webpage on here, and I wanted to and have everything ran on Flux, and then have people use Flux to buy from like my print shop and stuff like that. But I just spent way too much time trying to trying to just fix it and just make it work, that I caved. I gave up, right? Because I'm just like, I'm not going to spend this many hours just trying to make it work on top of trying to build my website, right? It's just the website already takes up time, and now you're just taking up more of my time. So it just doesn't make sense. So I'm just hosting it where I have my domain name at Namecheap. So, and I don't have to worry about anything, right? It just works. Everything just runs properly. I don't have to like sit there and wait for edits and like, oh, it didn't sync and now it won't let me back into the page, and then I have to soft redeploy. So, and I really wanted it to work. I tried. I used several instances to try to make this work, but it's just not there yet. I am a Flux fanboy, right? As most people know me as, right? That I preach Flux, and they're trying to do great things. I honestly do, but I'm not gonna lie, being in this position, I am concerned about it, right? The node operator numbers are down by like 3,000 since I did my video. The WordPress is to me not been very successful, and maybe it's just me. Maybe that's just my experience with their WordPress. I don't know. So maybe others have had better experiences, but I'm just telling you, me as a user who has paid for it, I can't recommend it at this time. But it is a beta, so that is fair that it's still technically testing. I think they should maybe make it for free and make it an alpha, and that way they could get people to try it for free to report bugs, and that way it could just maybe speed up things and trying to get it to work better, I guess. Maybe that's just a suggestion that I would say. All right, guys, this is the Money King giving you the most hashes, and I'll see you next time.